I'll just share my screen. Okay, so can you all see my screen and hear me? Okay, yeah. Right, so I've called this from rags to riches, but of course my story is not a personal one. You know, I'm not going to tell you how I became very wealthy after being born into poverty. No, this is actually a literal meaning of from rags to riches. So basically, I'm taking rags, so that is fabric waste and textile waste, and recycling them hopefully into rich, vibrant fabric art. So that's what it's all about. And this is me sitting in my studio, old studio. My new studio is actually what you see behind me. So this is a refurbished studio, but this is my old studio. So I'm sitting in my studio, which is kind of like a woman cave or Aladdin's cave, because I'm surrounded by all these treasures, and these treasures are actually fabric waste, pieces of fabrics which are left over after a garment has been stitched by the tailors, and also textiles, old textiles, and these are normally destined to end up in landfill sites, and I'm preventing from happening, ending them up in landfill sites, so I capture them before that happens. So just a few words about textile waste. You might know this, but 350,000 tons of textiles in UK every year end up in landfill sites. I mean, you may wonder what's the harm if that happens. I mean, first of all, it clogs up our site. Our country is not that big, and it's a lot of textiles which end up. Now, the second main problem is environmental issues and the issue of pollution. Man-made fabrics like nylons, polyesters, and so on, they are non-biodegradable, so they don't decompose at all, or if at all they decompose very slowly. In fact, even natural fibers like cottons and silks and wool, they do undergo biodegradation slowly, but they produce methane gas, which is more potent than carbon dioxide. And as you know, it's a main contributor to global warming. So that's not good news. And it is said that fast fashion industry is actually the second largest polluting industry after fossil fuel for energy. And it's mostly the cheap fabrics, cheap fashion, because we have become a disposable society. And we throw away the clothes or the textiles. Sometimes people don't use them even once, they just don't like them, or just maybe use them once or twice and throw them away. And it's not just that, but it's also the chemicals and the dyes and everything which are used for making these textiles and clothing. These end up in water, in streams, in river, oceans. And the third very important factor is a lot of natural resources are lost in making these, or used rather. But apart from electricity, the water is actually, a lot of water is wasted in producing fabrics. In fact, especially for cotton, one cotton t-shirt, the amount of water it takes to make one cotton t-shirt is enough for one person to drink for 2.5 years. And to produce one cotton t-shirt, it takes about 2,700 liters of water. And to produce one pair of jeans, it takes about 15,000 liters of water. I mean, just imagine that, how much water is being wasted. And at the end of it, if you're not reusing or recycling, upcycling the textiles, everything is going to waste, after all that. So I think it's very, very important. I'm very, very sort of passionate about recycling and upcycling and being environmentally friendly. And that's really kind of, my message, basically. We need to have a circular economy. Anyway, so what do I do with all these fabric waste? So my forte is producing fabric collages. And you may well ask, what is a fabric collage? The way I produce my fabric collages, I use hundreds and thousands of tiny scraps of fabrics and recycled textiles and stick them onto a canvas board. And I use a special technique, which is heat bonding. So there's something called heat and bond, which is a sheet of paper which has got with double adhesive, and I use it not only to stick the fabrics onto the canvas board, but also to also stick it on the fabric that I want to use to cut it, and also to prevent the fraying, etc. So as you can see in this picture of the peacock, it's not just one layer of fabrics, but I use layers and layers of fabrics to give like a painterly effect. And also, otherwise it will be very flat. So kind of, as the painters would use quite a lot of strokes, I kind of use my fabric. So fabrics are my medium instead of paint. And I usually embellish all my pictures with colored stones, diamond sequins, and all that to give them that magical feel. Then I cover it with UV varnish so that the colors of the fabrics don't fade. Of course, most of the fabrics I use are synthetic fabrics, so they usually don't fade that easily, but silks, cottons tend to fade. So it's good to use the UV varnish. And then the last stage is covering them under glass and framing them. So that's a brief kind of thing, the way I produce it. Now, this is a work in progress. When it's a simple landscape, I mean, I just do a very rough sketch and then keep on sticking these kind of tiny pieces of fabric. So that's the cherry blossom, and that's the completed picture. This was a commissioned collage. This is sunrise in Fortaventura, one of the Canary Islands. And this is a photographer who used to go to Fortaventura all the time. And he gave me a photograph that he had taken, and he said, "Can you make a fabric collage out of this?" So when it's more a photorealistic collage, like here, or when it's portraits, then I do the grid method so that I get the proportions right. So this is in progress, and this is a picture which is a completed fabric collage of Fortaventura. So basically, I hope to convey joy of living through my fabric collages. All my collages are happy collages and uplifting collages, and this collage that you see over here is called Harvest Dance. And this is based on tribal art. This is a tribe in India called Baharier, Central India. They're very poor people, but very, very happy because they celebrate little things in life. So this is harvest time, and they're celebrating it by singing, dancing, playing musical instrument. So they really celebrate life. This is something I think we can learn from people who have a bit more affluence than these people. So that's what I'm trying to convey. Most of my collages are inspired by the natural, beautiful world around us. And this one is called Don't Come Near My Kids. And it's inspired by our walks into the Pennine countryside, which is just on the doorstep of Bolton, where I live. And this is a very common sight, of course, in most of the rural England. Of course, I take lots of photographs when I go somewhere, or I even make a small kind of quick sketch or something. And of course, you use 4 or 5 photographs, and they're not exactly as they are. I just moved kind of things from here to there. I mean, there was no tree there, for example. I love trees, so I just put trees wherever I can. This is Wordsworth Lake District, and obviously inspired by his poem Daffodils. So this is one of my collages which I did early this year. As I said, yellow is something I really find it uplifting. And in this collage, I mean, you can see the layers and strips of various fabrics I've used. My husband had a collection of beautiful ties, neckties, and he is also a doctor. He's a GP, but of course GPs now don't wear any ties. And they provide a beautiful, kind of fabric collection to me. I use his old silk ties. They make wonderful pictures. And this is, of course, a path through bluebells. And this is Lancashire moors. And this is the scene we can see at the moment in Lancashire, these colors. And the dry stone walls, I absolutely am fascinated by dry stone walls and the way they make them. Of course, we commonly see this in Lancashire, Yorkshire, and I think other rural areas. Again, there is no tree, but well, I like trees. I love trees, so I put trees wherever I want. This is nasturtiums on a fence. I mean, such a common garden plant, but such lovely, beautiful, uplifting flowers. And even the leaves are so pretty. And you'll notice these leaves are made from sort of Indian silk fabric with lots of gold in it, and they really make beautiful, vibrant collages. This is one of my latest collages, and this is from Buxton in Derbyshire, and this is a place called Solomon's Temple, which is actually a folly. It was created several hundreds of years ago. So this is a collage I produced for a textile artist exhibition, which is happening in July. So this will be one of my contributions for that. Of course, we don't need to go anywhere to find inspiration. I mean, this one is called Flowers in My Back Garden, the Baharier and yellow poppies. This is red hot poker. I absolutely love the colors of red hot poker. You know, the yellow, orange, and red are so uplifting. They give you so much of pleasure when you're looking at them. I mean, there's a little story about this. You know, that I look forward to kind of these blooms coming up, but in summer. But one year they were late in coming, and I wanted them to come out. So over the weekend, I produced this collage, and as a kind of invoking them to come out. And lo and behold, the next week they all came up, and I was so happy. This is Agapanthus in my garden. Again, I mean, I bought a bulb a few years ago, and when the summer came, you know, I was absolutely blown away by this delicate, ethereal beauty of these blue, purple flowers, and I had to capture it in my collage. And it was very hot that summer, so the background, that's what I'm trying to show in my background. This is, of course, a hot air balloon, my hot air balloon ride, inspired by my hot air balloon ride in Cheshire a few years ago. And I think this brings us very nicely to the subject of travel and travel as inspiration. I'm an intrepid traveler, and I love to travel to places of natural beauty, wildlife, interesting architecture, and so on, and also places which are off the beaten track. I mean, Mark Twain has actually said, travel is fatal to prejudice, and so it's actually that's why it's needed by humanity more. Anyway, so I love to travel, and I've been very fortunate. I have been able to travel to so many places in the world. Now, this one is called In a Parisian Cafe. And everything has been produced in fabrics, including the baguette, the wine cask, the mother-in-law's tongue, and so on. Everything absolutely entirely produced in tiny, tiny pieces of fabrics. This is, of course, Tuscany, Italian landscape with typical red poppies and cypress trees and the villa. Of course, Netherlands is very well known for the Keukenhof gardens and its tulips and Muscari hyacinths, but Netherlands is absolutely, mecca for art lovers, and there are so many museums and beautiful things. And obviously, this collage is based on girl with a pearl earring, Johann Vermeer's famous painting. But of course, my girl has got sapphire earrings. So this is a girl with sapphire earrings, and completely done in fabrics, of course. And this bandana, that's actually, I've made it from an old skirt, which was discarded by my daughter. It's a beautiful long skirt, but absolutely beautiful, beautiful print on it. And of course, I don't use one layer. I make it like a kind of, layers upon layer. This is St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow, in Red Square. It's one of the most recognized cultural icons of Moscow, built in the 16th century as a Russian Orthodox church, but now it's a museum. But its colors and the shape and the various cupolas and the domes are so beautiful and so colorful. And each cupola and each dome is different. And this lends itself beautifully to fabric collage because it's so vibrant in color. Vienna, of course, as you know, is a very classy city, and again, so culturally classy as well. And in 2012, it was Gustav Klimt's 150th birth anniversary. And they had exhibited all his paintings in various museums and so on. And I wanted to see, he's one of my, well, I like some of his paintings, let's say. And The Kiss is one of my most favorite painting. And I actually managed to see The Kiss, the original Kiss. So the one on the right, obviously, is The Kiss, which I have recreated in fabrics. And the one on the left is a Circle of Life. It's only part of that. It's a big frieze in Vienna. This is Rock of Gibraltar, the lime. Some disturbance there. So this is the Rock of Gibraltar, and this is Red Sea, and absolutely rich marine life in the Red Sea with beautiful corals and these exotic fish and so on. It's the same in Australia, the Great Barrier Reef. You see a beautiful marine life. Unfortunately, the corals have been bleached. A lot of corals have been bleached because of the heating up of the oceans, and it's such a tragedy. Hopefully, they're saying they're slowly getting back to normal, which is a good thing. Africa is absolutely fabulous continent. I like to travel to Africa as often as I can, and dance and music is very, very central to Africa. So this one is called Celebration. And as you can see, I've used old buttons for making their earrings, and also these are old shells. And all these are all from some of these are from my old blouses, silk blouses, and so on. This is sand dunes of Namibia. Namibia is an absolutely amazing country in Southwest Africa. And these are sand dunes, and they have this beautiful orangey hue when you look at them very early in the morning. And the other interesting thing is these trees, which are in the foreground, very eerie looking, black, dark trees. These trees are supposed to be 900 years old. And it is said that there was a river which was flowing 900 years ago, and then there was a drought because of the big kind of sand dunes and storms, and the river disappeared, and these trees, because of the scorching heat, they just completely dried up. They didn't even decompose, they just dried up, and they're still there. So, relics of 900 years old, but it makes such an eerie, mysterious picture, and I had to capture it in my collage. Now, this one is called Along the Silk Route, and we went to Uzbekistan, traveled to Uzbekistan a few years ago. This is a country in Central Asia, and this is in a place called Khiva. And this is one of the mosques they have, built in 16th century, but all their mosques and everywhere in Uzbekistan, this beautiful Islamic architecture, which uses a lot of blue color tiles. This is, of course, Sakura and Mount Fuji in Japan. We were very lucky when we visited Japan a couple of years ago. The Mount Fuji was very visible, and it wasn't shrouded by clouds. And the type of cherry blossoms they have in Japan is absolutely amazing. Now, this is very interesting. This is a pitcher plant. Of course, we do see pitcher plants even in this country, but they're small. We used to have a pitcher plant at home. We traveled to a place called Borneo, which is in the Malaysian archipelago, and it's very well known for its biodiversity. And at the Mount Kinabalu, there are these pitcher plants everywhere, Nepenthes, and they're huge pitcher plants over there. Now these, you already probably know this, these are carnivorous plants. So these are the plants which eat insects and so on. What actually happens is insects are very attracted by this very luscious color of the lip of the pitcher, and then when they fly into it, they slide down because the neck is very slimy. And as soon as they slide down, the operculum or the lid shuts the pitcher and it's trapped within it. And then there are digestive fluids which are within the pitcher, and then they just absorb the insect. Most of the time they just have things like flies and mosquitoes and butterflies, etc. But in Borneo, they told us that they had found skeletons of tiny mammals as well, like rats and mice and rabbits and all that. So, it's such a interesting plant, carnivorous plant. It makes makes us wonder about vegetarianism because this is a plant which is actually eating animals. Anyway, This is a jungle path in India. As wildlife enthusiasts, whenever we travel to India, we have to go and visit these forests to see the tiger. So this was one of those visits to one of the forests in South India where it was just after spring, and it was very dry. Or these are deciduous trees, so they shed their leaves, and they're bare trees, and all the leaves are on the ground, and the only path which is there is made by the jeeps in which you go and track the tiger. This is a tree of life in India. This is an Indian tree of life called banyan tree. I mean, all countries have their trees of life, but this is Indian tree of life because it stays green even in summer and provides sustenance to human beings, animals, birds, etc. And the birds also eat this red fruits on it. This is a Rajasthani village elder from India. And he's wearing this typical turban of tie and dye material, this is also from my old shawl and so on. Everything is in fabric, including the hair on his beard. Now, this actually picture was inspired, I've copied it actually from a reference photograph by Steve McCurry, who is a very famous National Geographic photographer. And this picture appeared on the cover of Saturday magazine of Guardian a few years ago, and I've tried to, I think it is it is a photorealistic collage. This is a champion surfer, and Australia is very well known for its surfing beaches, and this was inspired by somebody called Stephanie Beecham, who is a 7 times women champion in surfing. And you can see that in the surf, I mean, I produced it with old pieces of net curtains. This is fall colors in America, in New England, in America, which is a northeast part of America. And it's absolutely, every tree turns into these beautiful red, orange, yellow kind of foliage. And this is Antelope Canyon in Arizona in America. And again, I mean, these are really beautiful sandstones which have these natural sculptural formations which are formed by erosion. This is rainbow eucalyptus in Hawaii Islands. One of the islands is called Maui, and they call it rainbow eucalyptus because the bark sheds very frequently, and the underlying raw bark shows these beautiful hues of various sort of colors. We visited Canadian Rockies in 2009, and in a place called, and this is in a place called Whistler, and they were preparing for Winter Olympics the next year, 2010. They held the Winter Olympics, and Whistler was this is where in Whistler they were going to hold the skiing champion, and they were preparing over there at that time. So it's inspired by that, and this is a lone skier. This is in a country called Costa Rica in Central America, again a country of absolutely amazing biodiversity. And this is a volcanic mountain called Aruna Mountain, and in the foreground you can see these red ginger plants, which they think is medicinal. Even its rhizome is red in color. There are butterflies everywhere in Costa Rica. In fact, there are 1,500 types of butterflies in Costa Rica. And these are just black and white butterflies, but the main butterfly you get there is called the morpho, which is blue in color, and that's going to be, it is on my list to make the fabric collage of that. This is called Avenue of Jacaranda. We landed in, we landed in Argentina on a November morning, Buenos Aires in Argentina, and I didn't know it was actually jacaranda season, and every street, every avenue had these beautiful blossoming jacaranda, and this is that was the inspiration for that. Now this one is called Love is in the Air. And this is inspired by these birds, which are called blue-footed boobies or sula birds. And we traveled to Galapagos Islands, which are, again, a paradise for wildlife enthusiasts, and these are part of Ecuador. Now, apparently, we saw these Sula birds over there, and apparently at the mating time, in the mating season, the male birds, their webbed feet turn very bright blue in color, and so do their beaks, and they do an awkward dance around the females of the species. And it is thought that the more brighter the blue color, the more attractive they are to the females. I mean, I don't know how true it is. You'll have to ask the female Sula bird. Now, this is a lighthouse at end of the world. And this is a place called Patagonia, which is at the southernmost tip of the Patagonia region of Argentina and Chile. And a place called Ushuaia, and all the Antarctic cruises start from this place called Ushuaia. They call it end of the world, obviously, because it is the southernmost tip. And after that, there's no land, and all the cruises for Atlantic Ocean start from here. As I said, all my collages are kind of, I hope they're uplifting. And this abstract is called Freedom, Fly to Freedom. Birds are a very potent symbol of hope and regeneration and freedom. And this is, of course, Rise Like a Phoenix. Again, Phoenix is a mythical bird, but again, it's a potent symbol of renewal, regeneration, and new growth. And I think it's very important in this pandemic season, that we must have hope, we must have, renewal. And this is something called, because I'm a woman, I mean, you can interpret it in the way you want, whether it's a multifactorial, complex, multitasking woman, whatever you like to say. Now, I didn't introduce myself. I mean, I'm recently retired, but before retiring, I was a hospital consultant in a specialty called histopathology. You may well ask, what is a histopathologist? I mean, histopathology is a specialized branch of medicine in which surgeons, gynecologists, they take biopsies from lumps and bumps, and or they do a resection of a tumor, and all that material is sent to the histopathology laboratory to be analyzed by looking down the microscope. So there's a lot of microscopy work involved, and it's an absolutely fascinating world down the microscope. When you're looking down the microscope, you can see abstract, you can see modern art, you can see landscapes. It's absolutely wonderful. And all these collages, these are inspired by microscopic images of human tissues. Now, this one is called, it's a fungus called Aspergillus fumigatus. And these are spores which look like fruits. Now, this one is, of course, a section of a coronary atheroma, coronary artery in your heart, where it's partly plugged by this atheromatous plaque. And normally this should be completely patent, but it's blocked because of atheroma. And this is a parasite which looks like boats, and this is known as Giardia lamblia. It's the parasitic form or vegetative form of a parasite. And this one is a transmission electron microscopic image of cell within your nose. And these finger-like processes are actually called, they're there because they are mobile, they move, and they try to remove the dust particles, viruses, bacteria, and so on. And this yellow bit is actually mucus. I mean, I know it's disgusting, but, under the microscope and as a landscape, it looks like sort of something else. And this picture actually appeared on the cover of the Bulletin of the Royal College of Pathologists. And these blue tiny dots are actually virus particles of common cold. So it's a common cold virus within your nose, within the cell of your nose. So those previous ones, they were all commissioned by East Lancashire Hospital. So they're lying, they are all kind of in there. And then I was commissioned to produce collages on cardiac pathology, heart pathology, by a professor of cardiac pathology at Royal Brompton Hospital in London. And these are the collages. I mean, this is obviously not a microscopic image. This is the whole human heart in all its correct anatomical positions, all the chambers and big arteries and all that. And this is another picture of coronary atheroma. And the professor wanted me to make it bold and vibrant and very big and dramatic. So I've added this area of hemorrhage as well, apart from the plaque. And this is a transmission electron microscopic picture of a single heart cell or myocardium. And this is me with Professor Mary Shepherd, who is now, she has moved to St. George's Hospital in Tooting in London with my collage there. This is something called the maze, and this is also based on electron microscopic picture of a structure within a cell, and it's called endoplasmic reticulum. And this is actually a stitched fabric collage. And this is the microscopic appearance of retina within your eye. Now, retina in your eye has got several layers, and this is what I'm trying to show, but this is in a stitched collage. This is another picture of a microscopic image, sort of very abstract and colorful. Any guesses? Anybody can guess what this could be? It's a microscopic image of something, but it's not human tissue. I don't know if anybody can guess this. Anybody guessing this would get a gift. No? It's actually an image of a drop of vodka under the microscope. So there you are. Looks absolutely beautiful. So that was about my collages. What else do I do with my textiles, recycled textiles? Something else I do is make rag rugs or Amish or toothbrush rag rugs. So very, very easy. I make them with an implement from the back of a toothbrush, cut off the brush, but the long part, the handle of the toothbrush, make a hole in it, and I use it as an implement. Making these from pieces of old T-shirts and duvet covers, old, you name it, all old textiles. And it starts from the center and go around and I'll make it to whatever size you want. It's got a very mandala-like effect. And when you have that mandala effect, when you're creating those concentric effect, it has a very meditative effect. So when I feel very happy making these toothbrushes, I absolutely enjoy stitching as well. Although my previous collages didn't involve stitching, I do a lot of stitching as well. And this is something which is called Euphoria. And again, made with pieces of sari fabrics and all sorts of fabrics, colorful fabrics. And in between, there are automated machine embroidery stitches. And then it hangs like a, so it hangs on the wall. It's a wall hanging, basically. And this was shown at the NEC Birmingham Quilt Show. This is another quilt. I mean, this is called Fantasia. And this is a technique in which 4 or 5 layers of fabrics are stacked together and then they're stitched in a design and then cut through so that you can see various layers through it. And this is called boxed-in. Again, another kind of stitched fabric textile wall art, all created from leftover textile pieces. Now, this is something else I do, and these are rope baskets, which are made from pieces of fabrics and textiles, as you can see, long strips, and put around the rope, and then I stitch them through the on the sewing machine. Greeting cards made from tiny pieces of leftover fabrics, and I again embellish them with sequins and all that, and with a little bit of automated machine embroidery stitches. So each card is like a mini art piece that you can send to somebody. These are all cushion covers which are made from leftover pieces of tiny pieces of fabrics, and they're just sandwiched between fabric and kind of a viscose layer and so on, and then stitched with embroideries. These are all commissioned pieces. I also do something called wearable art. So old textiles converted into wearable art. Now this is an old sari which has been converted into a jacket, and it's lined with sweatshirt, so it's nice and warm. Another piece which was actually exhibited in NEC Birmingham in the quilt show, commissioned jacket. These are jackets from shawls. I mean, shawls are beautiful and they look nice, but they're not practical in this country. I think so I convert them into jackets. And these are some long gowns which I have converted from old saris. So anyway, so that was about my work, textile fabric artwork. And through my collages, through the sale of my artwork and craft work, I support, I'm very fortunate, I can support a lot of charities, and these are some of the charities I've supported. This is the Bolton Hospice. And last year, in fact, we raffled one of my collages, and that's the winner, and I managed to raise more than £600 for Bolton Hospice through that. I made quite a lot of double-layered masks last year, again from whatever fabrics I had, like so for our Rotary Club, I'm a member of Rotary Club. So for our Rotary Club and other charities we support through Rotary Club, we managed to raise about £1,000 just by the sale of these masks, and I didn't have to spend even a single penny to buy the fabric because I have such a big stash. So it was a good, and these are some of the charities I support in India through my art and craft. And this charity is for the treatment of leprosy patients. It was started for that, for treatment and rehabilitation of leprosy patients, started about 70 years ago, but now it also helps old, destitute, physically challenged people and so on. And also another charity for tribal health. And this is the charity for leprosy. They have an orchestra, they call it therapeutic orchestra, because people who are afflicted with leprosy, of course treated, and also physically challenged people, they become so happy when they're playing musical instruments, and we were happy to kind of help them support this charity. And these are some women who are doing vocational kind of training for sewing, and they become socially, they become kind of self-sufficient. This is another charity in India which helps in the rehabilitation of physically challenged people. So from the donations that we gave, they were able to make these specially made scooters with support wheels on two sides, because these are paraplegic people. They are paralyzed below the waist, but they can use these scooters, and they are mobile, and they become they become useful members of society. They become self-sufficient. This is another charity which works in slums in central India. So, I mean, one of the aspects of doing fabric art is very, very therapeutic. And, kind of like any art, I mean, fabric art is also therapeutic, very therapeutic, because it has got a very tactile, touch to it. And it has been sort of proven psychologically that, it has been proven scientifically that people who are suffering from psychological problems and all that, they benefit a lot from doing fabric artwork. They don't have to visit their psychiatrist so often. And most of the hospitals now have a program of art in hospitals, which is a good thing. So it's good for the patients who are there. It produces a nice, happy environment. And it's also good for the artists who are producing it. And there's no age limit to who can do the fabric art. Now, this is a primary school in Bolton, in a very socially deprived area. They invited me to teach these primary school children fabric collage, and we produced 3 large fabric collages. And these are just 6, 7, 8-year-old kids, and they were so happy making them. But of course, with COVID, it's kind of stopped everything. But hopefully, I should be able to go back in September. This is another thing I wanted to show you, a very poignant image. These are the hands of a leprosy treated person. Now, when I say hands, they're really stumps. So you've only got these stumps of fingers, but he's producing this fabric collage. I mean, a CEO of that leprosy charity, she was very artistic as well, and she was looking at my fabric collages. She taught her people over there in the commune to make fabric collages. So if somebody with so much physical deformity can produce art, nobody else has got an excuse not to produce something creative. Anyway, so that was all. Thank you very much for your patience, and that's my website. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really inspiring and such beautiful work.
Thank you.
And a fantastic diverse practice. There's so much love in the chat, and there's quite a few questions as
well.
Thank
you.
Let me see. I'll just work my way through them. So Siobhan says she's curious about where to find textile waste. it clothing factories? Where
Well, as I said, I like to sew, and I've been making my children's clothing when they were little and all that. I make quite a lot of my own clothes as well. But the main source is the tailors. My tailors in London who know that I do this work, and tailors in Bolton. So they gave me sack full of these fabrics, which they would have just thrown away in the bin. So it is such a treasure for me. So the tailors are mostly my kind of, and friends, when they know that I do this, they come give me kind of their old clothes and saris and whatnot. And as I said, my husband's ties. I've got a bag full of my husband's ties. And so any fabric, really, you can use any fabric. But yeah, tailors are my main source.
Great. And another question, do you hand sew your collages or machine?
No. All the first collages, they're all stuck. There's no sewing involved. So these are collages on canvas board. So I just stick them with something called heat and bond. So with a little iron, traveling iron. So I treat my fabrics with the same adhesive so that the fabric becomes nice and stiff. It's easy to cut because these are tiny pieces. And also there's no fraying. I mean, it's the same thing that people who do applique use as well, heat and bond. It's the same stuff. And I use the same stuff, because it's double-sided. The treated fabric piece is then stuck on canvas board using a little travel iron. So, but of course, I've shown some of the examples of stitched collages as well later on, which I showed. So I do, but majority of my work is, not stitched. I do some stitched, but these are not stitched. Majority.
Thank you. Michelle asks, how big are they? So I think you showed a picture of one where you were with
the kids. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Do they vary?
Yeah, they all vary in size. I mean, the largest one I've done was it's a very large one. That was about 5 feet by 3 feet. So that was the largest one I've done. And the one that the kids did, the school children did, they were also all 36 inches by 24 inches. So they're pretty big as well. But I've done small ones as well. But the smallest is 14 by 10. But majority are, I would say, 24 by 20. So, or something of that sort, or 16 by 20. So varying sizes, all sizes.
Thank you. Yeah. And another question is, how long do your collages take to make?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, it depends on the complexity of the collage and the size, obviously, of the collage. I mean, some of the simpler collages I have produced within 2 days. When I say 2 days, I've been working maybe flat out for 7 hours before an exhibition, for example, I've produced. But others like that man, the portrait of Rajasthani elder, I mean, that took me a very, very long time to make because that's quite intricate. So that took me, I would say, at least 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And also the one, the St. Basil's Cathedral, I mean, that is also, it's a lot of layering and it's a kind of 3D. So that took me quite a long time as well. So it depends on the complexity. Most of the landscapes are quicker. And if they're not photorealistic, then they're quicker because you're just doing what you want to do, kind of. So landscapes are easier, obviously. Abstracts are also easier, quicker, but portraits and all that, they take a long time.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Aruna, please? Or thoughts, comments?
I just think that they're amazing.
Thank you very much.
From bright. Well, yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful work.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I really like the hospital images of the microscopic.
Oh,
yes, I thought they'd be great. Could you show those in hospitals?
Yes, well, I mean, they're all hanging in hospitals. All of them are hanging in hospitals, apart from the new ones, which I've just created this year. So they will be shown in some exhibitions. But they're all the cardiac pathology images. They're all at the St. George's Hospital in Tooting in London. And the first batch I showed, they are in the East Lancashire Hospital in Blackburn. So they're all commissioned collages, but yeah.
I really love those as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, they make wonderful images, even abstract images. They're so nice. I've got some more ideas, but it's just, finding the time to make, or so many ideas, convert them into collages. So,
You're so prolific. There's so much work. Such a huge body of
yeah.
work.
Yeah, the struggle is real.
Yes, I'm very prolific. The problem is, I would love to show them an exhibition, but the opportunities are so far and few in between. And I had an exhibition booked last year in Preston, Hanover Art Gallery in the university, but just in March, and we set it up, and that's it. The next day they announced lockdown, and we had to take down everything. So that's completely gone. So last year I didn't have an exhibition. But it's finding exhibition. But I have a group exhibition, which is quite good because I'm a member of Textile Artist Group in Cheshire and also a member of Bolton Art Circle. So when we have group exhibitions, it's good to sort of exhibit at least 3 or 4 pictures. But I have so many collages because I keep on making them. I do. Yeah, I mean, a solo exhibition should really, this is what I would love to do, more of those. But
Do you sell them? Sorry.
Sorry, say that again.
You sell your artwork.
Yes, I do sell, but all of them, all the money goes to charity. So I don't keep any money. I'm in a fortunate situation not to need money from my art. So it all goes to charity. So that's a nice way of fundraising, I feel. And also greeting cards. I make greeting cards, some images of my collages, and at Christmas and all that. They sell quite a lot, which is quite a nice thing. So
Lovely. Thank you so much. Well,
thank you.
If anybody else has any further questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll go on to Michelle if you're ready to present, Michelle.
Okay, yeah, that was a fantastic presentation.
Thank you very much.
And mine's going to be a bit different. So behind me is a painting of my cat from lockdown. And over the last 6 months, I've actually been making sound pieces, which I'm not going to share here. How do I go screen? Okay. And purely because they go live tomorrow, the sound pieces. And they'll be live on Disability Arts Online, and they're in 10 parts. So tomorrow is just the first part. And they were based on a poem by a guy called David Morris called Route Master Race, which I'll read to you. It's called Route Master Race. I once fell off a Route Master bus on Barnet Hill in the snow, I am told. I was young and walking just, with tired legs, knocked knees, running fast out of usefulness. Not an urban surfer, baby. You will soon know your place. A London bus is not for you. You'll not be part of the Route Master Race. Segregated, tailgated, transported apart. Sometimes it felt like we were going to market. Tied down in rows, waving to the real world, sent away, jolting and crying, in the back of a Mini, not a master bus. Not an urban pole dancer, baby, we don't want you in our face. Stay on the sunshine bus, you're not part of the Route Master Race. Away from London, away from life, bus to our separation by ambulance. At least that's what it said backwards, so they could see our difference. Hopeless, helpless, kids apart. You're not an urban person, baby. You should know your place. Go stay in the institution, not part of the Route Master Race. Waiting for the 142, basking in late autumn sun, and a small commuter crowd complaining about Metro Line. The red beast sighs, doors open, and I board. Welcome for the first time. Part of London, part of life. I'm free from transport tyranny, baby, and on your fucking case. Don't get fooled by the urban myth. It's over, the Route Master Race. So I don't know, for those of you who live in London, you may or may not know sort of route masters or even the history of accessible transport for wheelchair users. So obviously the old-fashioned buses were open platforms, and wheelchair users and lots of other disabled people couldn't get on the buses. And during lockdown, I felt a bit like that poem, because I use buses and things as part of my mental health, and just traveling and looking out in the world. So for the past 6 months, I've been collecting people's bus stories, and that goes live tomorrow on Disability Arts Online, and it's a series of works over till mid-July that will get released. So I'm not going to show you any of those. I'm going to show you my other pieces. She says, hopefully. I'm not experienced at sharing screens, so I'm going to do my best. And I do make a lot of films, but I do make a lot of work. Has that come up? You should have a mural.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay, so this piece was made collaboratively. I'm a disabled person myself, and I've been involved for a long time in disability arts. And during the Paralympics, which was I think 2017, I worked with a group of people with learning disabilities, and we came up with 4 murals for Hoxton's art wall. And this is one of them. And mainly I painted the portraits, and the group designed the rest of the mural around the portraits. I think I've only got one. And so I do a lot of work collaboratively. Can you see that one? Has the second one come up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's got 4 other athletes there. And the athletes were chosen by the group, not by me, which is quite important. And the design, and obviously we looked a lot at Keith Haring, how he'd worked, and something that would work for people who didn't have much dexterity, because a lot of the people I was working with didn't have very much dexterity. And then I have my own work. And I do a lot of painting. Does that one come up?
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, see it.
It's a bit dark. It's called Adam and Eve, and Eve is taking out this big heart, which she's given to Adam. I like to paint from my emotions and on using the human condition, and obviously that then means using my own experience. And then I like to create what's in my head, and I do work with quite a lot of doodles and things as well, and I fill up lots of old books continuously with doodle drawings. I call them doodle drawings anyway. Don't know if everyone would call them doodle drawings, but and paintings. So is that this one? So here is another one here. I don't know. Oh yes, I can move it on the thing. I also I'm quite a multidisciplinary artist. So this is Miss Havisham's wedding dress. And this is the London Alternative Fashion Show. So I put together a whole performance in 2012 that celebrated Charles Dickens' anniversary. And the fashion show and the performance was made through clothes describing the characteristics of his characters, and then we put that together as a whole show. That's my piece. I also do a lot of photography, which I then collage. You can see these okay, I presume.
Yeah, they're lovely.
And I like working from what's around me, where I live and everything. So this is a council estate at the back of where I live, getting destroyed before regeneration, basically. And I do like documenting and interlinking historical things that are going on. And this is a piece that I made that's part of an artist postcard project responding to COVID and social distancing. And it's a collage. So I do work in quite a collaged way. I need another one because I had them so that I could click on them, but I'm not sure I can click on them when I share them. Let's try this one. Nope, can't do it. That one. I'll just see if I can do it with this one. No, it won't. Sorry. Just gonna see if I can share. Will it work? No, it's not doing what I hoped it would do. Apology. So I've put some more in my background, hoping I can open that up. How do I do that? Oh, I see, I do it here. So I'm just going to open up some of the work that I've been doing in the background here with looking at the buses and also bus stops,
Mhm.
which obviously are very important, and how I've been thinking about how we respond to COVID, and what COVID looks like or doesn't look like. This is a photo drawing because I work a lot with photography, as I've said, and turn it into drawing. And these are some of the images for the bus project. These are some of my drawings. I do digital drawings as well, which I find they're quite therapeutic to be able to scribble on a digital object. Are these coming up as a whole screen or just in the corner?
You've shared them as your background, so I wonder if you stop screen share, they'll come up as your background on your.
Oh, okay.
That
That's
might,
better, isn't it?
yeah, and then speaker view will like show it great for everybody.
Yeah, it's quite hard how this works without getting your head in the way. I'm not going to say much about them because I don't think there's probably too much to say. They're just more there for people to enjoy. Because also I think one of the things that's come about, this is a doggy in the window, is how people are responding with nature. And some of the disabled groups I've worked with, many people actually can't get out, and actually therefore giving people images of the outside world has been really important to keep people engaged. And I do turn the work into cards and things like that to sell. Um, and then I run walks as well. So I usually do one, a midnight walk in June for summer solstice. Usually they're quite big. Last year I did it virtually and had about 400 people join me virtually on Facebook, which was quite fun. And very different from when people come in person to join a walk. This is one of the walks where I'd do, it was called Largactil Shuffle Walks. And Largactil is a mental health drug that actually affects you so you can't walk. And we'd use it to raise money for charity, and everyone with an orange jacket on was trained up to do something creative and interesting on the walk. And whether that included getting people to play games or engage with the locality. And it was an interesting way of taking people to parts of London that people are afraid to go to and don't like. Then this year, well, no, last year actually, at Christmas, I set up a walk here in this area, which is called Dickens Estate. And as you can see, that's Copperfield House. And the whole estate has got a different Dickens named building. So it's full of them, Havisham House, Little Dot, you know. So I created a walk, and again, it was done virtually due to COVID. And people came on the walk via Facebook, and it had about 200 people on the walk. And took them around that estate. And then obviously before COVID times, this is one of the books that I've made of walks that I've done, where people can find and plot the social changes and historical things going around in the areas. So I like to take people on these little adventures. That publication sits with Public Health in Southwark, and it's called Cool Walk. So if you wanted to have a look at it, you could take it on and go on your own walks. I thought I'd show you me with some of my paintings. Not the best photo, apologies, but there's a Klimt painting there of the woman in the golden dress, because she really interests me, and the whole story around that painting, because that's part of my heritage, intrigues me. And my work is very, you know, when I say I'm a multimedia artist, that's what I am. I don't have one form of practice. This is the Olympic Park in 2012. That's when the Olympics was, isn't it? And this is me. I do performances, and this is a costume for my COVID performance with some of the poetry I've written. They're all on YouTube if anyone's interested. So yeah. And here's one of my you know, I've been observing people, and very naughtily I nicked this person outside the Maudsley, which is a psychiatric hospital, with their headphones on. I thought that's very appropriate, what's going on at the moment. One of my cityscapes from Brockwell Park. Yeah, I like colours. I'm a bit obsessed with colours. I also like photographing my cooking, and especially things like eggs and things where they start taking on other identities. What I do with some of these things, I don't know, I put them on Instagram. Other things would be good. This is a piece of work I did with a sculptor, Rosanne. It was a piece of public art to bring together in our local area in Camberwell provision for people with mental health, but also to destigmatise mental health. And it's a bench, it's a couch in Camberwell Green, and it was commissioned through a charity that I used to run. And it went with the Largactual Shuffle walks, and the walkway up to it is a ginkgo leaf. And due to austerity, a few of the members that we had took their own lives, and we wanted to remember them. So we had a ginkgo tree planted there as well, as a memory tree where people can go and leave messages to people as they see fit. And then I'll just show you a few more images, one of my paintings. It's one of my photographs. This is one of my installation pieces with my rag doll. I have a big rag doll that I perform with. She's not quite as old as me, but not far off it. My jacket, which I wear this jacket a lot when I do my walks, because a lot of the walks I do are about destigmatizing mental health and creating stories where mental health connects with the lived environment. And the jacket, as you can see, has got a Jewish star, which people would have worn in concentration camps. And then on the arm here is a triangle from every colour that different prisoners in Dachau would have had, because actually they don't know if all the colours were uniform in all of the camps. So I think it's only Dachau that they've actually got a list of the actual colours. So they make assumptions sometimes about where the colours were in those collections. I don't know if that, no, that doesn't show very well, that doodle. So maybe we can end on a nice route master bus. Sorry, my partner just sneezed. We'll end on a nice route master bus. So yeah, I've got quite an eclectic, I suppose, range of work.
Thank you. Yeah, another fantastically diverse practice and really lovely presentation. Thank you. There was a question from Siobhan about the artist postcard project. What was it she's wanting to know, please?
What was it? What? Sorry.
The artist postcard project that you mentioned.
Oh yeah. So there was a call out for artists to respond to COVID by making postcards. And I suppose the way I responded to it was thinking about, well, do you wish people are here? Because quite often a postcard is like, wish you were here, wasn't it? And sending someone this nice image, whereas it's like, don't come visit me. At the moment, it's not a good place to be. So I was kind of trying to work out how to describe that.
Does anybody else have any questions for Michelle or comments? There's lots of love in the chat as well. Just lovely to see.
Thank you.
Oh, Nicola's got a question. Who wrote the poem?
Oh, a guy called David Morris, who he was the disability advisor to the Mayor of London. So for most of the time it was Ken Livingstone and then Boris, but unfortunately he died in 2010. And he was also part of Direct, called Dan, Disabled Something Network, and who actually got buses made so they were accessible. And I think even though the book it's in is a book that I produced called an anthology, anthropology rather, I'm dyslexic, an anthropology rather than anthology of poetry, that the poem's in. But really, until this lockdown, I don't think I'd felt the poem. I'd understood the poem about the exclusion from everyday life, but the simpleness of getting on a bus and just being able to go somewhere just got taken away overnight. And then I think I just felt more akin to that poem than I'd ever felt, because I've had that poem in that book for 11 years and I've read it time and time again at events. But the fullness of it, how we all then share that experience of exclusion during COVID, really came to light for me. Because especially in London, you know, bus drivers were dropping dead from COVID because they weren't being cleaned properly. And, you know, it's very hard in London not to use public transport because, you know, just to do most things, you might use a bus or a tube or an overground train. But where I live in particular, there isn't an underground, so everything is bus. And the feeling that you shouldn't use a bus because it was only for key workers, you know, so it was a choice, you know, you could get on it, but you weren't supposed to. But at the same time, the dangers, the lurking dangers of how do you use a bus now, you know, having the window open, wearing a mask, cleaning your hands, having all the sanitizer, you know, but it just really brought home how much we take for granted, that simplicity of the fact we hop on and off. And yet for years we had a group of people totally segregated, you know, and my great aunt was disabled, she couldn't bend her knees, but when I was a kid she could get on the route master buses because she could shout at the conductor to bring the bus to the curb so that she could walk on and just stand on the platform for the whole of her journey. But when they brought in one person buses, she couldn't get on the bus, you know. So kind of, it isn't something I think perhaps we think about that much because we take a lot of stuff for granted. Yeah, probably answered that, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anybody else got any questions or comments? I don't know if there's any more questions in the chat.
Sorry, so this picture which is in your background at the moment, so it's a collage on a photograph or?
No, I actually found this because I've been going uptown a lot. I've been walking up to Covent Garden and around there because it's walkable from where I live. And this bus was just sitting outside Drury Lane Theatre.
Yeah.
It was pure opportunism. And I just got lucky and found it.
Yeah.
I have got some photos of other buses because near me in Bermondsey there is actually a place where lots of old route masters have been turned into cream tea buses. I need to go and find out if they're accessible because it might even be nice to have the project launched on them or something. A bit, you know, another launch, because obviously it's all been designed under COVID, so the pieces are being released by Disability Arts Online, but there's no reason why they couldn't go other places. And once they're released, you can download them and to your phone and put them on headphones and take them with you for a bus ride or a walk or just sit in your living room.
Thank you.
Oh, Nicola.
All right. Can I just ask, what is it that you're doing tomorrow and how do we get onto it? Is it on Instagram or something?
It's on Disability Arts Online. So if you put in Disability Arts Online, they're releasing on their website. I'll put up a link actually. The pieces. So I'm just looking for it. And I'll put the link up. So they're releasing the pieces. And they're not all going to be released at once. And some of them are, there's one group which is a group of poets response to the project, and the rest are sound and visual collages that I've done. So hang on. Oh, I've got quite a few things on there. So it's not coming up, just a second. And I got participants to join in with me. So a lot of different groups of people with different experience joined in with the project. And I've interviewed bus drivers who drove Route Master buses. I've interviewed quite a lot of disabled activists who tied themselves to buses. There we go, that should take you to it. It's called the Walkie Talkie Project. Yeah, so, and they're collages, so they're sound collages with some images as well.
Is there a time that goes live?
It goes live at 7:45 a.m.
Okay, great. I'll get on sharing that in the morning.
So it's as early as you want to get up. I think a lot, because they kind of plan it for, but nobody's traveling to work, so it's complicated, isn't it? But that's when it's due to go online, yeah.